What's up, Honey Path? Thank you for tuning in for this interview of one of our own, Miss Erica Hughes. I'm looking forward to getting into some testimony questions. Erica, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Yeah, I'm excited.
How has things been since you've been home from the lockdown?
Things have been, in a way, crazy, but at the same time, not at all, because there hasn't been much to do except sit around the house and do my online classes and catch up on homework. But it's definitely been different, but it's been really cool just to see how it's all worked, and to see how like my schooling has been affected but also not been affected, and how professors have just worked really quickly, at least at Charleston Southern, to make sure we're still like learning and still like being caught up with things, and still being taken care of through all of this.
Well, I know that the summer is getting close, and one of our biggest prayers is that this shutdown will not interfere with Summersalt. And I know that you have a lot of very special plans ahead in the summer. What are some of the things you're looking ahead to that you like people to pray about?
So fortunately made the decision to not go back to Summersalt for a fourth summer, which was really hard for me to pray through that and decide that, but the Lord started showing that to me through the ending weeks of camp this past summer. So it was cool to be able to actually talk to other staffers about it and some of my bosses about it. But I knew with like full certainty that the Lord was calling me away from Summersalt, and definitely not just like completely not having anything to do with it. I'm still keeping up with the staff that is there this summer, talking to them. But this summer, I've actually applied for a worship internship at Journey Church, which is a church that I've been attending since moving to Charleston. So I'm very excited. I move into my apartment with my roommate in Charleston in just a few weeks, in like 2 weeks, I think. And I'll find out about the internship a few weeks later. So people just praying, not just that I get the internship, but for the internship in general, for a lot of other church camps and things going on that I know my friends are heavily involved in too, and it just seems like everyone's summer plans are very up in the air. So really just praying that everything kind of calms down before then, so that these things can continue, because I know for me as a student, and for me where I am now, the things that I did ministry-wise in the summer were some of these like catastrophic, like life-changing, like turnaround points in my life. So I would hate for things to just not be able to happen this summer.
Definitely. Well, my prayer is definitely with you in your summer plans. I'm hoping that everything goes smooth. I know that a lot of the essential worker clause, so a lot of that work is protected, and I pray that that applies to your internship. So definitely we'll be praying for you. Thanks again for just joining us. And one of the things that I wanted to do is I got a list of questions that I've been asking a lot of people, and I've been calling them testimony questions. And I'm saying these questions first question I want to share is tell me about the moment that you started to put your faith in your life.
I'm going to repeat that to you because it was breaking up a lot. You asked the moment I decided to give my life to Jesus. Yes.
Yeah, and tell me about that moment.
Okay. So I obviously grew up in church. So I grew up right at Honey Path First Baptist. So for my entire life, I've like heard the stories. I've been heavily involved in church. My family was one of those that anytime the doors were open, I was going to be there. And I'm very, very thankful for that. So I feel like it's such an odd story, because when I was 6, I thought that I was making a decision for Christ, but it was almost like yes, I understand, but I just know that hell sounds like a really scary place, and I don't want to go there. So I like prayed the prayer and was actually baptized at our church when I was 6. But it took me another 10 years to realize that what I had done then wasn't actually a relationship with the Lord at all. So I actually was saved on May 20th, 2015. So my 5-year anniversary with Jesus is coming up in, I think, exactly a month from today, which is exciting. But I was actually attending, I'd gone to a service at a different church with some high school friends that had invited me for like a summer kickoff of their youth program. And I can just remember sitting in this auditorium, like surrounded by so many other youth and surrounded by a lot of my best friends at the time. And just this like overwhelming feeling that I'd been doing something wrong for 10 years, and not like a condemning feeling that I'd just been like stuck in sin for 10 years, but that I had misunderstood something greatly. And I can just remember sitting there and like sobbing and not being able to understand really what was happening or what was going on. But I just knew that I could not stop crying. And my friend like tapped me on the shoulder and he was like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" And I was like, "I'm not, but all I know is that like when they call for salvations, like I have to go. Like I have to do something, but I cannot stay here." And I can remember grabbing one of my friends and taking her down to the altar with me, and just kneeling there and praying and realizing that for 10 years I'd kind of lived a religion, and I had made my walk with the Lord out to be this thing of things that I either had to do or that I absolutely could not do. So I like to explain it like I'd made like a religion checklist. So it was like I had to do these things. Like I had to pray every day, and I had to read the Bible, and I had to go to church, and I had to be on leadership teams, and just all these things. And it was like, you can't go out and party, you can't cuss, you can't do like just this like list of like cliche things that you learn. But that was my thing. So I had been living a big lie of it was my works that were getting me to heaven, and it was my works that dictated who Jesus thought of me and what he thought of me. And so that night, it was just like a big slap to the face where the Lord was like, none of that is true. You don't have to strive to be anything. You don't have to work hard to be anything. And yes, it is good to do those things. It is good to read your Bible and to pray. And it is good to stay away from the things that will cause you to stumble and fall into sin. But that night, the Lord was like, those are not the things that dictate if I love you or not. The thing that dictates if I love you or not is the fact that I died on the cross for you and that I rose from the dead. And that's all that matters. It's not what you can do, and it's not what you're going to do. It's simply just that you are who you are, and that he loved me for that reason and that reason alone. So that was it was the biggest turning point in my life, obviously, was to go from religion to relationship. And I know that's I feel like a churchy term when it talks about things like that, but I realized that night that it is a churchy term, but it's also very important, because if you just know the rules of religion, there is no love and there is no actual like feeling and intimacy there. And if there's anything I've learned since I was saved, it's that a relationship with Jesus and a relationship with the Lord is full of intimacy and it's full of love. And it's not just a list of rules, but it is like how he sees you and how he feels about you.
So you said you're coming up on your 5-year anniversary. So 5 years later, after that experience, why would you say that Jesus is still the most important thing in your life?
Oh, wow. I feel like there's so many reasons for that. I think the biggest thing is just that he's always there. There's always overwhelming love and grace and acceptance. So even in those 5 years that I've been saved, I've messed up a lot, and I've stumbled and I've fallen into traps of sin, and I've gone down roads that I wish I never would have gone down. But through all of that, I can look back on those things and see that the Lord was still right beside me through it all. And learning that like there can't be a loss of that salvation, and there can't be a loss of that relationship once you have it. And a big thing for me through these 5 years has just been the concept of grace. I actually have a painting on my wall right now from John 1:16, and it just says grace upon grace. So I think just it's like, how could anything else become more important than Christ when I've given him countless reasons to give up on me and countless reasons to walk away from me? And when I've come to him and literally been on my face and just saying, like, you have every right to walk away from me. But hearing him say, but I'm not going to. and I'm going to continue lavishing this grace and this mercy on you, because that's who he is and that's how he feels about us. I think for me, it's just one of those things that I don't know how I would allow anything else to become more important when he has so much like grace and love for us, when anything else, like earthly wise, like that wouldn't be the case. Because if I had messed up that many times with anything else in the world, they would have left. But Jesus never did.
Mhm. Well, you speak about that relationship and that love, and while we're walking here on this earth, there's so many distractions, so many things to interfere with that relationship. What are some of the things you are currently doing to help that relationship to grow, to help you move closer and more intimate with Christ in your life right now?
Yeah. I think a big thing that I've actually learned a lot this semester in general, is the importance of like daily Bible reading and prayer. And while I still struggle with the fact of don't let it become, just like a part of your schedule, and don't make it to just be like a thing that you check off your to-do list and say like, oh, like I was a good Christian today, I did that. But genuinely like diving into the word and reading what he has to say and then praying over it. I'm actually doing a read through the Bible in a year. So I have a chronological Bible that lays out daily what I'm supposed to read, which has been really cool because I'm 21 and I've never actually read through the entire Bible. And that's always been something that I've wanted to do. So as I'm doing this and kind of reading through the Old Testament and some passages that I've never really thought to read before, I think that's a big thing for me, is just like pulling out at least 30 to 45 minutes of my day and allotting that to Jesus, to reading that and then kind of praying over what I've read, praying over my life, praying over some friends. I think that's been a big thing for me. And that's something that I've always struggled with, is just having like a set time to sit down and spend time with the Lord. But this semester has taught me a lot that it really can change a lot when you are in daily communication with our Father. And I'd always heard people say that. And I was like, I don't know, like how that could really change that much in my life. And now that I've actually started doing it, I can see a difference. And I can see that days that started out really poorly, if I sit down and spend time with Jesus, they have the tendency to turn around and become more joyful. But that's a big thing for me. And then another big thing is obviously just worship. And that is what my major is. That's what my heart and my passion is. But I'm currently reading a book for one of my classes, that talks about the power of worship. And just once you allow it to like have that power, it's crazy what the Lord can do through that. So I found myself a few times through this quarantine just like sitting on my bed and playing my guitar and singing worship songs, and then hearing the Lord speak certain things to me through that time. Something that I'd never really experienced. And I normally have experienced the Lord moving the most in my life through worship, but just having like a personal moment, like a one-on-one moment with the Lord where he kind of reveals things to me through worship has been really important too. Or even just like playing a song on Spotify and sitting and like listening to it. Those things have been really important to just keep that relationship.
We talked a lot about growing close to Christ and feeling that passion, feeling that grace, feeling that love, his mercy, his kindness. I mean, the words just keep going as far as his goodness to us. Talk to me a little bit about how that has not only been your input, but how that has also turned around into your output. How do you see the way you treat other people being affected by all this grace, goodness, and kindness that is coming into your life through Christ?
I would say that it definitely encourages me to do the same to people around me, because I've seen the personal impact that it's had on my life, that from the Lord giving me things like that, being able to just pour out more love and grace and kindness to people around me. There have been a few times throughout college where you have relationships with people that kind of go on like a roller coaster. but there's still people that you don't want to lose and you want to fight for. And so I've learned a lot through the past 2 or 3 years that people will hurt you and they're going to say things that hurt, but you're also going to hurt people and you're going to say things that hurt them. But through these situations, there's so much opportunity to fight for them and to keep choosing them and to keep giving them grace and love and mercy, and hoping that they also give you that in return. Because I know that because the Lord has continued fighting for me and continued pursuing me, then why should I not keep fighting for people around me? Be that people that I have really close relationships with, or be that with people that I see sitting in our campus coffee shop and have maybe like a 2-minute conversation with every other day. But just continuing to fight for relationships, even if things get hard and if things get messy. That's been the biggest thing, is just that if the Lord can do that for me and how many times I've messed up, then why should I not be able to do the same thing for those around me?
You know, right now we're kind of in a lull. Things aren't as busy as normal. Things are really slowed down. I think in a lot of ways, even though there's a lot of heartbreaking stuff going on, that slowing down has been a blessing and kind of the silver lining to help us reevaluate stuff. But it's going to get started again soon. And all of this stuff is going to be competing for your schedule, your time, your attention. Your plate is going to fill up super fast. I've been working with teenagers for a long time. And one thing I see constantly in every class that comes through is everybody wants their total commitment. Sports, academics, music, family, friend, even church. Everything is competing for their attention and their commitment and their effort. What advice would you give to a young person who is being pulled so many different directions on setting priorities and making the choice that Jesus wants them to make rather than the choices that the people around them wants them to make?
Yeah, that, oh wow. So when I was in high school, I think back to how crazy my schedule was then, and still is. But I can remember as a high school senior being in choir and playing soccer, and also being heavily involved in the youth group, and heavily involved in like my family things. So just a lot of things pulling for your attention all the time. And I think if I could go back and change anything about my high school years, it would just be to simply choose priorities. Because I know there were a lot of times where I'd be in church every Wednesday and every Sunday, but I wouldn't make the time outside of church to prioritize my walk with the Lord. And that's not me saying to not prioritize anything else, because I wouldn't be who I am if I wasn't in the choir at school, or if I didn't play soccer for all those years and be on that team. But I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that you just have to make time. We all like to talk about how busy we are and how we don't have time for anything, but we can always find time to watch Netflix or watch some stuff on Disney. And I'm preaching to the choir right now too. But I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that you have to make the obvious effort to make time and to choose that. Growing in your relationship with the Lord is a discipline. And it's a spiritual discipline that you have to work on. You have to grow just like any other discipline. So if you're in voice lessons or instrument lessons or playing a sport, those things are disciplines that you work on and you practice and you grow in. But our walk with the Lord is the exact same. It's just as much of a discipline. It's just as much as a like power through, got to work on this, got to get better with this. But it's different from the worldly things in the fact that we're not growing our discipline with this to please those around us. We're growing in our discipline to this to please our Heavenly Father. And so that he feels just as loved in the love that he lavishes on us, we can give back. But I think that would just be my biggest piece of advice, is to kind of reevaluate what you're spending the most time on, and not necessarily giving anything up. Sports and music and things like that, they're all great things. But just being able to make the time for the Lord, and to grow, and not just for Bible reading or prayer, but for anything, just to make him the priority. Because I heard a lot growing up that if he isn't the number one thing in your life, then everything else is an idol. But I didn't know how to fix that. I didn't know how to bump down my music or bump down my sports. But it really is just kind of sitting down with yourself and reevaluating, okay, what can I not spend as much time on? What can I pause a Netflix show and spend 45 minutes with the Lord and then come back to it? I mean, it's nothing bad about going back to it. But it's just actually choosing to make that time. And it's a choice that nobody else can make for you. And I think that's what I waited a lot growing up, for somebody to make me sit down and spend time with the Lord, or for someone to deliberately say, like, Erica, you need to do this, you have to do this. But that's not going to happen. You just have to, it is a discipline. You have to make yourself choose to sit down and choose to spend time with him.
You know, everybody has goals and dreams and pursuits in their life. How has your faith molded your goals and your dreams?
Oh, wow. I think my faith is the reason that I have a lot of the goals and dreams that I do. I think one thing that I've learned a lot is that the Lord gives all of us passions. And usually those passions stem into our goals and our dreams and the purpose that the Lord has for our life. So just a quick story. I can remember growing up and always having this passion for music and a passion for worship, but not really knowing where it fit in with my life, because I wanted to be a veterinarian. I had my life figured out. I was going to go to UGA. I was going to move to Georgia, be a vet, have this great, business and have a lot of money and a big house. And I can remember actually sitting at Summersalt one year and the Lord just whispering, missions and music. And I was like, I don't even know what you're telling me. Like, what does that mean? And he was like, I'm calling you into full-time ministry for one. And I also need you to kind of trust me and change where your life is heading. And I was like, I think I was a sophomore or a junior in high school at this point. So it was around the time where I'm starting to actually look at colleges and take SAT and apply for things. And I was just like, I don't know what this means, but sure. And I'm still not fully sure as to what he means by all of that. But he has molded my dreams a lot to send me to Charleston Southern instead of the University of Georgia, and to be involved in a program like music and worship, and to meet professors and the people in that group that I don't know how I would do life without at this point. And he's also given me a lot of dreams to do things with missions and to do things that normally I would be. If you would have asked high school Erica if she would have ever thought about starting a nonprofit and doing things with missions and music and being up on stage and leading people in worship, she would have laughed in your face, because she was terrified of everything in a turtle shell, don't look at me, look at other people type of person. And she's still in me in some ways, but the Lord has pulled out a lot of boldness and a lot of confidence to not only trust the dreams that he has for me, and even though they seem kind of big and out of reach, he still kind of challenges them a lot. And it's like, well, dream bigger. What else do you want? What else do you want to do? Because that's something that I learned my freshman year of college, is that the Lord isn't scared of our big dreams. And that normally if we have big dreams that we're scared of, it's because he's given them to us. So my faith has definitely molded my dreams and my passions and the things I want to do completely and utterly. If it wasn't for my faith, I don't know where I would be or what I would be going to do. It would be a complete opposite of where I am right now, though. I do know that.
If an unbeliever came to you and said, Erica, why are you so worried about whether or not I give my life to Christ? What would you tell them?
I think the biggest thing is just that I would tell them that they're missing out on the greatest love story they've ever known. Um, I know that our culture is kind of obsessed with this like hopeless romantic, searching for love all the time. Um, and for me, I would tell them that they're missing out on the greatest one they could have, the best relationship they could have. And it's not just a, hey, you get to spend eternity in heaven, but it's that you get to have this whole like life-changing relationship with the God of the universe. And to think that like if I were to look outside my window right now and see like grass and trees and like how blue the sky is and all of the clouds, like to think that the person who created all of those things, everything in nature that does a different sunrise and a different sunset every day, also was like, the world needs an Erica. Like that's a kind of love that I can't even begin to fathom, but that I also don't know what I'd be doing without it. It's the kind of pursuit that as a girl, we all dream of this guy to come along and pursue us and to fall in love with us. But the Lord has already done that, and he's constantly pursuing us, and he fell in love with us before we were even created. So I think that would just be the biggest thing that I would tell them, is that they're missing out on this incredible relationship and someone could lavish on us, and something that is completely life-changing, something that I can't even fully explain half the time.
If somebody came up to you and said, Erica, I'm a believer and I feel God is calling me to do eternally significant things with my life, but these temporary accomplishments have too strong of a hold on my time, on my attention, and on who I am, what advice would you give them to begin to shift from a temporary accomplishment mindset to an eternal significance mindset?
I think I'd start off with telling them that it is hard and it's scary, because I've been in that position where I could feel me to these eternally significant things, but I was still like, what about all these other plans I had for my life, and what about everything that I have now, and what if I wanted to play soccer in college and have free time and like get these other like accolades and recognitions? What if I don't know, there were a lot of what ifs that I went through, and I think the biggest advice I could give is just simply to trust the Lord's plan. And it sounds hard, because it is very hard to just completely trust that what the Lord is calling them to is worth it. But those temporary things are exactly that. They're just temporary, and they're not going to last past whatever this life is, however long it is on earth. And we may get recognized for it here, but that recognition will mean nothing in the span of eternity. But to trust in the Lord's plan for their life, and to know that he has everything planned out, and to just kind of sit in that and allow the Lord to move and to open doors and to close doors where he needs to, and to follow that plan has been the greatest thing that I've done, is just to trust that and to kind of shift that mindset to things that I want, to things that the Lord wants. But once that mindset shifts, the things the Lord wants also becomes the things that you want as well. And you're so willing to run after those things. You're so willing to pursue those things more than ever. Because like I said, he gives us certain passions. And there's been some passions that I didn't even discover until I let the Lord kind of shape my life into these different ways. I never would have thought of being so in love with missions for someone who has never really done a lot of missions. I have such a heart for it. And that's something that the Lord started to shape that passion when I fully allowed him to kind of take the reins of my life, and to shift that mindset from temporary to eternal. Because the eternal things, things that we do for the Lord, even if they may seem insignificant on our world, and we may not get recognition for them, and people may not know our names, and it may not be in shining lights everywhere, but the Lord sees it. And the thing that has always pushed me along is to think about when I get to heaven one day, and when I stand in front of the Lord, I don't want him to say, you were so caught up in all these worldly things, and you're so caught up in the gifts that I gave you to further my walk that you completely missed the main point of it. But I want him to be able to look at me and to say, well done, my good and faithful servant, because you took the gifts that I gave you and you used them for an eternal. And it's just a trusting and a faith that even if I can't see the reason for it now, I will. And maybe I won't see it on earth. Maybe it will be when I'm in heaven and you finally see the rewards of that labor. But the ones that I have seen on earth, whether that be through talking to campers at Summersalt or just having conversations with people, to see the way the Lord is using that eternal significance has given me much more happiness and satisfaction than any temporary worldly thing ever did. So I think that would just be the best advice I have, is to just have that trust and have that faith. And once you do, and once you start seeing how it changes things, it will forever change things.
You know, that kind of leads into my next question. Have you ever seen a earthly or temporary thing that pulls you away from God actually become one of your best tools you serve God with? Does that make sense?
Repeat it one more time.
Say there was something that you loved and had a passion about. It was an earthly thing, and it pulled you away from God, but all of a sudden you see God taking that thing that was pulling you away from him and using it as a tool to serve him with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually with my voice and with my talent in music. It was something that even in using it for the Lord, I got very caught up in his gift and totally forgot about him. So this actually happened about a year ago. So it started then. We have these things called vocal proficiencies at CSU, and it's basically like a big test, and you go in, you sing a few songs, and your professors decide if you pass it or not. It's a pass or fail, and if you fail it, you only get one other chance to retake it and to pass, or else you're not allowed to continue in the School of Music at Charleston Southern. So I actually failed my vocal proficiency the first time that I took it. And that led, because of some health issues that I didn't even know I was dealing with until later on in the summer. But that spiraled me for a while. And I didn't realize that I was finding my worth in my talent. And because it was what I was going to school for, it was what I was surrounded by. I was in like 2 or 3 different like worship groups, and I'm in voice lessons and guitar lessons and piano lessons. Like my world is revolving around music and this talent that the Lord has given me. And when I got the news that I'd failed, and later in the summer actually found out that I had some health issues regarding my vocal cords and everything, it was a big moment of, Lord, am I even where I'm supposed to be? Like, did I make the wrong decision when I came to CSU, when I majored in music? And so throughout last semester, there were a lot of nights where I had these moments where I would be in a practice room, either practicing for a voice lesson or something like that, and I would just break down because I didn't know if I would be able to continue in the School of Music and continue with my passions. And through a lot of that, the Lord had to like sit me down one night and was like, Erica, I had to bring you to a point where I threatened to take all of this away for you to realize that it's not what I've given you that is good. It's the gift giver that is good. And he gives good gifts. He absolutely does. But if we get caught up in those good gifts, and if those good gifts we find our worth in those things and we start pursuing those more than we pursue the one who gave them, that's when it becomes a problem.
Mm.
So the Lord very much had to show me that through a lot of prayer, there were a lot of nights where I was like, okay, well, if I fail, am I just going to drop out of college and do something else? Or am I going to change my major as a junior in college and kind of rewrite the story that I had? Like a lot of nights where I was like, Lord, what is my plan B?
Mm.
And come to find out, thankfully in December, I passed my vocal proficiency the second time that I tried. And it was a big moment of the Lord saying, there are no plan Bs in my plan for you, for one, because my plan is the only plan. There will never have to be alteration. There will never be another route that you have to take. But he also showed me a lot that like sometimes he has to take good gifts away so that we remember why we have them in the first place. And so that was a big kind of awakening moment for me where I was like, and it wasn't me using my gift for anything bad. It was just that I'd found my worth in it. And I wanted to know that humanly people were pleased in my ability and pleased in my gift. And the Lord just had to show me that that's not why he gave it to me. And to understand that we have really good gifts that he gives, but if we get distracted by those things and forget about the gift giver in general, he will take them away. And thankfully, sometimes he brings them back. I'm very glad that he brought mine back. But it has to be a point that we understand the balance between we have this really good thing, but this good thing is for us to use for the Lord's glory and not for our own glory. So just finding that balance and knowing that sometimes there will be things that the Lord has given that will compete for our attention from the Lord. But we just have to remember and remind ourselves every day that this thing was given from the Lord to bring him glory and not for any other reason.
Mm. This whole story was reminding me of that part that Paul was sharing in scripture, that he was praying for this thorn to be removed from him 3 times. And Jesus said, my grace is sufficient. I am enough for you. And wow, what a testimony of what you went through to be able to feel that personally. And this kind of leads to my last 2 questions. Difficulties kind of come in 2 ways. Sometimes difficulties are forced upon you against your will. And sometimes you choose to walk into difficulties. What does your faith say to you when a difficulty is forced upon you against your will?
A big thing that I've been learning through this semester is that regardless of our circumstances and regardless of how life looks, the Lord does not change. So my faith has taught me a lot this semester that the Lord is good even when our life is not. This has actually been one of the hardest semesters I've ever had to walk through, if not some of the hardest 4 months that I've ever faced in my life, just because of a lot of personal things that have gone on, things that the Lord has been teaching me because of everything with this coronavirus has kind of went crazy and thrown off a lot of plans that I had. But through that, the Lord is continuously showing me that he is still good. And there's a song called Goodness of God, which I'm sure a lot of us know, that just simply talks about how good he is. And I can remember sitting in a practice room and singing that earlier this semester and just kind of singing over it that like, even when I can't see the Lord's goodness, I can trust that he is still good. And even when my life does not feel good and nothing feels okay and it kind of seems like the darkness is finally going to win, it's not one. But to also know that the Lord is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and our circumstances don't change who he is. He is always going to be faithful, and he is always going to be good, and he is always going to walk ahead of us into battles that we were going to face, and he's going to claim the victory for us before we even have time to pull out a weapon to start fighting. And that's what my faith has been teaching me through this season a lot, is just how good he really is. And he's not just good when our life is good, but he is good all the time. And that's something that I've been praying a lot recently, is that, like, Lord, life doesn't feel great most days. But regardless of that, you are still great, and you are still good, and you're still taking care of everything. And being reminded that any hardship or anything that we go through in life is just a season. And the Lord says that there is an end to every season. And there is also a purpose for every season. So to know to keep pushing through that, but also remembering the true character traits of the Lord and how those never change.
Well, my last question for you kind of is the second part of that. There's a lot of times where serving God is such a pleasure. It comes with so much joy. You get the fellowship with some of the people you love the most, and serving Him is just wonderful. But then there's those deny yourselves, take up your cross and follow me moments where you understand that if you disobeyed God or if you compromised your faith, life would be more comfortable and more pleasing. But you also know that if you obeyed and pursued God's will to the best of your ability, that it would require sacrifice, difficulty, and what is your faith saying to you that we need to choose a will road?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? It was all breaking up.
I am so sorry. Sometimes difficulty is thrust on us, but then sometimes we see that if we disobey or compromise, it would lead to an easier, more comfortable path. What is it your faith says to you that would make you choose a sacrificial, difficult path?
I think a lot of that stems from what I've learned through difficult times, and seeing that if you stay planted in that hardship, that there is good that comes out of it. And a lot of that has been fulfilled through being a staffer at Summersalt and being able to share my testimony with some kids, and have really cool conversations about things that I thought absolutely destroyed me, things that I just labeled on my story as defeat, and things that I wish I could have avoided in my life, things that I wish I could have changed. I look back on those things now, and I would go through it again 100 more times if it meant that I could sit with somebody and say that, like, I've been where you've been too, and it's so worth it to keep fighting. And to have conversations with people that when you're talking to them and you feel the Lord specifically say, this is the reason why you had to go through what you did. And it's no longer just a specific reason, but it's a specific person that has a name and a face and a story that was a lot like mine. And it's encouraging for me because I've been through those times, and because I've had times where it's been I can ditch this and life is going to be a whole lot easier, or I can sit in it a little bit longer and keep trusting the Lord and keep pursuing what He's saying, and knowing that there will be a time that this will end. Every season has an end, but also knowing that there's going to be a day when I get to sit back and the Lord shows me exactly why I had to go through what I did. So it's just one of those things. Once again, it's just trusting the Lord and knowing that He doesn't make mistakes in our plans, and He doesn't make mistakes in timelines, and He doesn't have a plan B. So anything that we are being faced with, anything that we are going through, that is thrown on us, that we had no choice in the matter, to know that there's a reason we're going through that. And sometimes it's a reason for yourself. Sometimes it's a personal journey you have to go on, but sometimes the Lord is going to introduce a person to you later on down the road, and you realize that that person is why you had to go through what you did, so that you could stand on the other side of it and encourage them through it. Because I know some of the things that I've gone through, I wish I would have had someone a few years older on the other side of it that could say, it does get better. And that's not just me saying that to say it, but it's because they were on the other side. And the Lord has allowed me to be that person for people, to be that person that's a few years ahead or a few years older, that to say, I'm not just speaking nonsense words to you, but like I'm standing here because I am on the other side of it and because it does get better. So I think that's always my encouragement to, if I know the Lord has put me in a season and a specific hardship for a reason, that there is a reason, and knowing that I will see the fruit of that one day, be through earthly fruit or through fruit that I see in heaven, knowing that the Lord doesn't allow things to happen without a reason. He's not just going to throw us into hardships because he likes to see us suffer. But there is growth. There is molding that can happen in hardships. And there's also specific reasons that the Lord has allowed these things to happen. So just knowing that and trusting in that, like, wholeheartedly.
Erica, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out and to go through these questions. I'm sorry the internet was cutting up today. I don't know what was going on.
Mine is probably on my end too.
Well, we'll have to tell Charter to step up their game. But I'm so grateful for you. I love you, and I'm so proud of what God is doing in your life and through your life. And I just want to thank you so much for shining so bright for him.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, you have a good day.
You too.